People who work at super fancy hotels, what kind of stuff happens that management doesn't want people to know about? It's pretty common to have a dead guest. There's a standard procedure for it, and we take care of it quietly. I was once waiting for an elevator in a hotel pretty early in the morning. The doors opened reflexively. I started to get on, but it was filled with empts. A stretcher and the hotel's general manager. He politely suggested I wait for the next one. The patient had an oxygen mask on, with some tubes leading somewhere. Later I noticed that the ambulance pulled off without the siren, waited for a stoplight. I suspect he was dead all along, and they just made it look like he was unconscious, getting treatment. I used to work as an empt, as well as in a hotel. I've seen both worlds, lol, but no lights and sirens doesn't necessarily mean the patient is dead. It could mean the emergency is over. Meaning, adequate care is being provided by qualified medical help, and going code 3 to the hospital doesn't bring any greater reward than just going code 1. They're a weirdly popular place to commit suicide. Have a nice last meal, some nice entertainment as a swan song, then die in the comfort afforded by 5-star accommodation, safe in the knowledge that someone will find the body and they won't be left lying on the floor of their own home for 7 months before somebody notices. I think actually most people who do this do so to avoid a loved one finding them. This is the same reason why so many do it in their car. It's often both. And oftentimes, someone has no close loved ones to find them, so they need to arrange it. During housekeeping, hotels use different colored cloths to wipe your drinking glasses, cutlery, toilets, and sinks to avoid contamination. They just didn't bother separating these cloths after wiping and moving to the next room. Yeah, that's just like in my office. Cleaning lady has different cloths for desks, kitchen, toilet, etc., but only one bucket with water. Did valet at an upscale hotel in Seth. The number of times I parked luxury vehicles with drugs haphazardly precariously stowed in obvious places always blew me away. Not surprisingly, those guests were great tippers as they learned who to trust. So many escorts, too, always laughed at dudes who'd come to the restaurant for lunch with a new lady practically every day, like he was showing off his catalogue of women, as if no one knew he paid for them all. We take notes on your reservation profile. Everything from anniversary information to fave cocktails and foods. Add notes to pass along to other staff. My wife and I got married in 2009 and stayed a couple nights in a hotel during our honeymoon. Cut to 10 years later, we decided to redo our honeymoon for our 10th anniversary, so we stayed in all the same hotels, etc. Big shout out to Hotel Andra in Seattle. When we got to our room, we have flowers and a bottle of champagne with a note about how thrilled they were we were spending our 10th anniversary there after honeymooning there as newly wooed. Turns out when we booked for our honeymoon, we told them and they were able to figure out 10 years later we were there for our anniversary. If we redo this trip a third time, I will 100% make it a point to stay there again if it's still open. I want to know what my notes were from my honeymoon, where I got a really bad stomach virus. Very white, only eats plain toast and white rice, spends a lot of time in bathroom. Every company that could would do this. I worked at a video rental chain 20 years ago, and we could see notes from stores on the other coast. I worked at a video store. The best note I ever ran across in an account read, Strike 1, Asshole Strike 2, Paid with a $100 Strike 3, Rented you got served. The evil that we wrote about customers on the internal Blockbuster video system would be a scandal today. The amount of sex toys left behind will blow your mind. Call me stingy, but if I put down money on gear, you'd better believe it's coming with me when I check out. I have a pretty interesting one. We know criminal enterprises have funded casinos in the past. I worked at Revel Casino, now Ocean, in Atlantic City before and after its opening. One thing they kept mentioning in our onboarding was that the triads were funding the casino. I thought it was super strange that these execs were just openly telling brand new hires. Probably a deliberate lie. You're much less likely to skim the hotel if you think the triads will come after you. $2 per night, and this place has a serious rat problem. Could be worse. My hotel has silly rats. I only work as a housekeeper at a regular 4-star hotel, but probably about 25% of people either bleed or leave shit stains on the beds. It's truly atrocious how disgusting people are, especially when they know someone else is cleaning it up. Even the wealthier guests. And the best tippers are the cleanest people. If someone fully shit on the bed and used towels to wipe, left cum on the shower door, drank heavily, and puked on the carpet in multiple places, and clogged the toilet, the person will not tip at all. But the person who barely used the full bed and didn't use the shower at all, and was super clean and polite, now that's a good tipper. Up until a school trip when I was probably 17, I didn't even know to tip the housekeeping staff. My family never did it, and we'd been to plenty of hotels. For this school trip, the teacher in charge reminded us on the bus about 10 minutes before we arrived to the hotel to please leave a tip for the housekeepers. And if we wanted to be sure it got to the folks actually cleaning the room, to leave it under the pillow with a nice note. Who's a person here? Up until today, I didn't even know that some people tip the housekeeping staff in hotels. I can't recall anyone I know has talking about doing this, nor have I ever seen anyone doing this. Now I have to go ask my friends if any of them tip housekeeping staff in hotels. A well-known luxury hotel and resort chain keeps a database of you. They get pictures from the internet and basically stalk you to create a profile. They put what you ordered to eat, how many towels you needed, what drinks you liked, your kids' names and birthdays, address, phone number. Everyone working in the hotel has access to this database and can see your information. It's not all good stuff either. We know you were an asshole to Jen while you were staying in London. The one I was at had to remove cameras in the lobby because big-wig guys would bring their mistresses and no evidence was allowed to be recorded. Michael Crichton, the author, said he spent a few weeks in a high-end hotel in London. He was writing a book at the time and taped notes to a dresser to keep track of the timeline and subplots in his novel. When he returned to the hotel a few years later, he found the staff had put bits of tape on the dresser just as he had done years during his last visit. Front desk knows all the call girls. We give them water on the way out and sometimes call them taxis. Management doesn't like us doing it, but escorts tip well. People often commit suicide in hotels. That way their loved ones don't have to find them. Also so someone finds them. Many people are all alone, and if they died in their home no one would know until the smell. My Bile is a detective with a NIPT, and a lot of his job is dealing with people who passed away months or in some cases years ago. It's sad to think about too. My parents' dog is 17 years old, and it looks like we're at the end. They're actually planning their schedule, so if the time does come, the dog isn't by herself when she goes. It's sad that there are people in this world who pass by themselves, and nobody even notices until bills have stacked up or a pipe bursts. We turn a blind eye to drug dealers and prostitutes more often than you think. They hardly complain and usually prepay huge bonds happily. Also, we don't give a shit if you're having an affair. When I worked at a nice hotel, the affair one was brought up in training. Never mention a person being regular, and doubly, don't mention anything about their partner or the fact it's a different partner. That became a rule after some valet basically kick-started a very nasty divorce with a wealthy guest. My parents have a hotel, and I've always been told to not remember a guest unless they remember me. I never thought about it before, but I'm guessing this is why. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and this is exactly how I approach going around town. Don't want to accidentally start up the where do you two know each other from convo unless my client is totally okay with it. This is a similar concept in Michael in Dining. Some repeat guest will ask not to be acknowledged when they have different guests with them. On a trip to Disney, I was traveling with my wife and her best friend. No, there wasn't anything extra curricular happening for the creative minds out there. But the friend got a stomach bug and felt sick one day. She skipped breakfast, so I went with my wife. The next day, my wife got sick. The friend wanted to try the same restaurant since she missed out. I went with her, and we got the exact same table and waiter. The look he gave me, eyes wide, head tilt and sly smile. But he was silent. And then you got the stomach bug the next day, so your wife and her best friend went to the same restaurant with the exact same table and waiter. Wink, wink. The same thing happened at my hotel. A regular guest brought his wife for the first time, and she questioned why he was getting all the returning benefit. They seriously didn't consider going far out for affairs, and actually went to the same hotel with their wife that they frequently were banging other people at. This just seems like karma. 95% of criminals are caught because they are complete morons. Humans like convenience. Conveniscence is not conducive to getting away with crimes. Social, personal, misdemeanor, or felony. Yeah, the hypervigilance is too much for humans to actually follow. Even serial killers. It's kind of funny how we fetishize serial killers are so damn smart and 5 steps ahead of the police all the time. The reality is most are just damn lucky, should have been caught multiple times due to sloppiness and mistakes, or incompetent police, straight up letting them go, but somehow kept going until their final mistake led to their capture. The kind of super genius serial killer we see in movies is essentially a supervillain. They aren't representative of the reality at all. They got a hotel credit card for the side chick and took the wife for a visit using the points. I know owners at high-end nice hotels that keep a trusted drug dealer around because having them arrested or removed opens it up to rivals and gangs, which bring in drama and violence. Literally, better the devil you know. I worked at a high-end hotel in Nice for years, and this was absolutely the case. The 1 year the new creative director decided to ban the friendly drug guy, it was terrible for the hotel. Several police raids because the vacuum was filled by sloppy operators. When we welcomed the old guy back, shit calmed down. He was actually pretty cool and was aware enough to not do his business directly on hotel property. No business shall be conducted on continental ground. When a friend was living at the plaza in the early 2000s, yeah, he has a shit ton of money. He basically said that anything you wanted, just call the concierge. Anything. Edit. My most upvoted comment in 10 years on Reddit is about rich people paying professional hotel staff to enable them in doing kinky and illegal shit. Important caveat to travelers from a night worker at a mid-tier hotel. Only very nice hotels have a true concierge on staff. Most hotels just have a front desk with extremely limited options or resources available to them. Yelling at front desk staff will not increase their powers or resources. Could you have it billed to the room? Make it look like room service? My company invoices might look a bit different. A club I know listed the escort services on its bill as champagne, with an obscure name, for its top-tier escort, and wine for the second tier. Friend works at a 5-star hotel, can confirm that the concierge can get you anything. Best hookers, best cocaine, VIP tickets to sold-out shows, you name it. Just remember to tip the man, and don't be fucking cheap. They do that with feral cats too, trap neuter release. That way there's a neutered cat defending the territory, meaning that an unneutered cat cannot come in and breed feral kittens. I love the idea of comparing coke dealers to castrated cats. I work by a very cool, trendy hotel in Chicago, about a block away. Ubers often go to the hotel by accident instead of my workplace, assuming that I input the pickup address wrong or something. In the ensuing conversation after this happens, I've literally had 5 different Uber drivers tell me essentially, oh yeah, sorry, trendy hotel doesn't want prostitutes inputting the hotel itself as the pickup address. So if I see an address that's close but not the same, I assume I'm picking up a prostitute at trendy hotel. To quote Community, normally we don't concern ourselves with adultery, cause then hotels wouldn't exist. My brother worked in an upscale hotel in Southern California. A morbidly obese guest sat on the toilet in his room, shattered it, got his femoral artery slashed by a chunk of broken toilet, bled to death, and flooded his room when the water line ruptured. My brother found out about it from the maintenance guy who found the body. Management made sure no other guest ever knew, including the guests in the room below the death scene who called for maintenance because water was running down their wall. I'm not even obese, but you somehow unlocked a new fear of breaking a toilet as slashing an artery. Thanks for this. Thanks for a new thing to be terrified of. Edit. I've seen a lot of really shitty replies about fat people in the replies to this. Whether or not I'm fat isn't relevant, and fat people are still people. Being fat, even if they're morbidly obese, even if you don't find them attractive, are still people who deserve life just as much as anyone else. It's very nice for you that neither you nor anyone you care about have struggled with their weight, but that's not the reality for a great many people, and considering that more people than ever before are more obese than ever before, that's a problem that isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Have some sympathy for people's problems and struggles, instead of saying shit like that, the guy deserved it. Holy shit, so many replies about how fat people deserve to die for the crime of being fat. Don't be a piece of shit. We had a customer find the overnight front desk receptionist in the closet, passed out with something wrapped around his neck and his dick flopped out. Was some kink play he used to do. Guy still kept his job. This is what I came here for, lol. So did the receptionist. A family member used to work at Opryland Hotel in Nashville. Yes, it's super fancy. For about a year, they had a phantom shitter, as in random dumps left in random places. It was always in corners where security cameras didn't reach. They figured it was an employee and had some ideas, but never knew who it was until someone left and it stopped. This was about 20 years ago. Of course, I'm sitting in a bed at this hotel right this moment, lol. You have taken a shit in a corner where the camera can't see you. Lol, I'm just imagining the shitter was still employed, but stopped when a co-worker left so everyone thought it was them. Perfect crime. Perfect revenge on a shitty co-worker as well. My buddy was a dive instructor at a luxury resort on an island. One of the guests had a heart attack on the diving excursion. Before he got off the boat, the nearest doctor couldn't come for 24s, so they put the corpse in the guest room and cranked up the aircon. Of course, reception gave the key to the corpse room to a newly arrived honeymooning couple. They were greeted by the star of Weekend at Bernie's Edit for Clarity. Doctor was to sign off death. Doctor was to sign off death. Do formalities, not to save life. Mauritius in the early 1990s. Gosh, this would be something I imagine on White Lotus. My brother was going to propose during a vacation dive. As they came up after their first dive, he hadn't popped the question yet. They were greeted by emergency staff searching for a diver missing from their group. Turns out he did drown. They eventually recovered the body, and brother and girlfriend spent the next few hours detained by the police as they interviewed everyone who had been on the same boat. They are now happily married, but he did hold off on the proposal until the day after. My wife claims that the amount of people who shit in the shower far exceeds however many people you think shit in a shower. Edit. 1,000 people have commented waffle stomp. You do not have to comment waffle stomp. Please stop giving me notifications. Och, but this is true. And I know this because I lived in an all-girls dorm in college, and our floor lost bathroom privileges because girls were shitting in the shower and trying to force used tampons down the drain. People are disgusting and will continually surprise you with how nasty they can be. That is disgusting, but what exactly do you do if you lose bathroom privileges? Like you live there and aren't allowed to pee? We were forced to go to the other floors or take turns in the one-gender, neutral single-stall bathroom. I feel like our RA wasn't really allowed to revoke bathroom privileges, but I honestly don't know. The single-stall bathroom was also regularly out of order because people would have sex in it and break the entire handicap seat off the wall, so it wasn't a super sustainable solution. My lady is always telling me to get shower shoes. You definitely sold me on buying shower shoes. Also, all the different kinds of foot fungus that can easily spread to you. Why on earth would anyone willingly shit in the shower when a perfectly adequate toilet is nearby? Now I understand if someone suddenly comes down with uncontrollable diarrhea as a result of food poisoning and can't make it to the toilet, but to do this as a regular thing. I don't get it. I used to clean bars. People draw on the store wall with shit. Guys pee their whole load on the floor. Girls glue pads onto the walls. People in general are horrible after some alcohol, and when they discover they can make someone clean up after their meth. As someone who has spent 15 years in retail, I can assure you that people are no better when they are sober. 13 years retail management here. I got called to the customer service desk the other day because someone wanted to complain that there was shit on the floor in one of the aisles. After it was cleaned up and acid protection came in, we looked at tape, and lo and behold, the person that complained, long gone now, was the same person who shit in the aisle and shook it out their pant leg mid-walk. I fucking hate people. I worked cooking at an ultra-exclusive resort in Utah, $3 skirt. $12 night. Nothing that exciting happened in my year there. I found a bottle in the tall boy. Large fridge, labeled Kristen Bell's breast milk. Do not use. Most celebrities were nice, except for David Beckham. He specifically requested no staff members make eye contact with him. I had put in my 2 weeks, and was really drunk on a day off, and made a post on FI about how Gordon Ramsay was coming, and I hoped he wasn't filming Kitchen Nightmares with us. I was fired within 24 hours. Lol. I did get to cook fish tacos for him and his family, though, and I heard he complimented the dinner kitchen crew directly, partially, open kitchen, which is cool. Wait, I can kinda add to this. A guy I know used to work with a guy that is close with Beckham, and he heard something very similar. Basically, Bex, when he stays in the US, asks for a no-contact style from the hotels, because American hotel staff are painfully excited, and he felt bothered by always-on nature of the service there. I think this is probably right. A friend of mine met him in a pub in the UK once. He had his dogs with him, and she made a fuss of the dogs, not even realizing who their owner was. And she said he was super nice, and they chatted about dogs for ages. But maybe the fact that she didn't instantly recognize him was refreshing to him. I found most celebrities want to be treated like people. There are those out there who want to be treated as royalty, but they just want to be treated normally. I worked in a music venue and bar, and one night Jeff Bridges showed up for concert and event. He ordered a lot of drinks for his group, but left without paying. He came in the next day, unprompted, to tell us what happened, which was he meant to pay before the end of the show to avoid being treated like a celebrity in a bar, but lost track of time and didn't want to get stuck in the crowd before he left. So he paid his tab with a big tip and then worked with the owner to schedule a fundraiser at our venue where he was playing music with a few other musicians, live bluegrass, and he's a great musician. Great guy, actually, and he just wants to be normal when he goes out. Las Vegas, city of excess. People overdo it, drink, drugs, and die in their hotel rooms all the time. Same in Niagara Falls. Spend too much at the casino and die in their room or jump over. I've long heard the same kinds of things about cruise ships. Helped. If you see someone go overboard, your job is to keep your eyes on them in the water, keep pointing at them, and yell for help. A single person is so easy to lose in the water, even if you glance away for one moment to grab a life preserver. If you see someone go over, your job is to keep seeing them. This is right. Do not take your eyes off of them for 1 second, or you will lose them in the swell. 100% believe this. I've been to Vegas plenty of times, but never, not once, see a gurney wheel through a hallway or out the front door. Seems they have good contingency plans for this particular issue. Of course, they're not going out the front door. Just throw them down the trash chute. Worked in a casino hotel, not Vegas, but in Nevada. The maids I worked with found 5 dead bodies in the rooms in 2 years, never reported on in the news. If they aren't murders, why would they be reported on the news? People die all the time, and it isn't necessarily newsworthy. People get murdered all the time, and it's not on the news too. We had one of the Baldwins beat up a hooker behind the building once. That was before I worked there, but people still talked about it. We had an entire wing of the hotel infested with bedbugs. They just moved through the walls from one room to the next. We waged a war of attrition that took years and cost a lot of money, but we never stopped renting the room. Sometimes drug addicts have money, or maybe better said, sometimes people with a lot of money have drug addictions. So maybe once a year or so you'd have someone move in and then end up staying for months, and you didn't know it was a problem until it was a problem. One day there's suddenly a lot of police cars in the parking lot, and it's something we're just not supposed to talk about and pretend never happened. We had one old guy, though, who was rich, divorced several times over. He just retired in the hotel. He had a room on the ground level right around the corner from the hotel bar. I don't know what he paid for it, but it wasn't cheap, and he furnished his own room. Everyone on staff knew his habits, knew his drink, 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 knew when to leave him alone, or when he wanted to chat. The funniest thing was, after he passed, he'd pre-booked his memorial at a totally different hotel. He liked his privacy, I guess. Rip Howell did the taxes for a ridiculously wealthy couple in Florida. Before they moved to a retirement community, they lived in a resort. I asked my boss to clarify. They lived like spent a bunch of time there, right? Nope, lived. Paid, I think, $1.05 from total for the room and furnished it themselves. Clearwater, Florida. Very nice place for a room. Lived there for about 5 years and moved to a retirement community when the husband fell and broke his hip. When my grandparents retired, they sold their home and moved into the Maxim Hotel Casino in Las Vegas. They ran the numbers and found it was cheaper than a retirement community and had better amenities. It's probably mentioned elsewhere in this thread, but retiring to a cruise ship is extremely common as well, for exactly the same reason. Not to mention the constantly changing scenery probably has some appeal too. One rich guy in my building threw dozens of heroin baggies out his window every day, apparently unaware they were landing on the 7th floor outdoor patio of the same building. Couldn't tell what room they were coming from, but damn, just use the trash. Nobody is searching your trash, where I had to pick all that shit up every day before anyone else saw it. The bed bug thing is the most fucked up to me. We had a bed bug infestation in my house. Don't know where we got them from, but could have been travel. The pest guy said they are not tied to filth in the way roaches are. Bed bugs can be in otherwise clean environments, in cheap motels as well as fancy places. He said, you got to wash everything immediately upon coming home from travel. everything. Everything is in the washing machine within minutes, or outside waiting. After that bedbug infestation, my boyfriend and I made a blood pact to never use hard luggage if at all possible. We only use canvas polyester duffel bags that can be laundered. I'll gladly strap my luggage to my back and hoof it through the airport like a pack mule without complaint if it means I have one more tool to avoid another bedbug infestation. Good grief, it was awful and expensive to get rid of them. People also don't think about other sources of cross-contamination that much. While you yourself might stay at entirely bedbug-free places, your fellow travelers might not. And their luggage is jammed in next to yours in the hold, the way they're jammed in next to you in the airline's cloth seat. Or they were the passenger who sat in that seat before you. I'm going back into quarantine now. See you guys, never. I spoke with a pest exterminator about this. He fixed bedbugs in our old unit in Sydney, and he said that many of his peers effectively have permanent contracts with hotels, at least high-end ones like the Intercontinental and so on. Rooms are just treated continually, egg every month, all year round. He also said you really just need to go for the professional option if you have an infestation, which is heat treatment. All the dye methods about washing, cleaning, and throwing out and freezing soft toys just won't cut it. Their eggs can lie dormant for up to a year, and you only need one egg to slip through, and you're fucked. We collectively need to know which Baldwin. Pick one, you're probably right. Vegas. Old guy's hooker, Viagra, cocaine are dead. So I totally think someone does in the bathroom of our suite at an upscale Vegas hotel. When we checked in, the smell was horrid like roadkill, but worse. We called maintenance several times, but they always said they couldn't find anything. Fuck maintenance finding the reason for the smell. Have the desk find another room. Porn shoots. And you know those carpets and upholstery ain't getting clean. Those carpets have such wild patterns, so the stains won't show up as well. They get those carpets at down flashes. This is a thing in Airbnbs too. My neighbor rented his house out when he was on months-long film productions. His colleague and friend was looking on Pinterest Hub for researches, and found a video with his living room in it. A house across the street used to be an Airbnb. At one point in time, I started getting multiple men, of all ages, 20-80s, at our door asking for Samantha. Well, there's no such person at my house. After the third or fourth time, I asked one of these men, "Why are you looking for her?" Yes, it was for sex. But why my address? Long story short, turned out that the Airbnb was rented by a young prostitute, and she was using the address of my direct neighbors and my house in an alternating fashion so she could easily check out the men and woman showing up in order to judge if they looked safe enough. Then she would send them a message with the real address of the Airbnb. I once counted 15 visitors in a day, sometimes for the full hour, sometimes for 10 minutes. It made me realize how people can live completely different kind of lives while staying right next to each other. That's kind of fucked up of her. I mean, I understand wanting to check someone out before giving them her actual location, but use like a store or restaurant address, or just tell them the street corner to wait at then not someone else's house. What you going to do if they look obviously dangerous? Just ghost them so they invade your home instead? Makes me glad the carpets in the hotel I work at are shampooed monthly, or more regularly if the carpet is looking gnarly. I worked in room service at a very chic hotel in Miami. One guest requested that a specific waitress, not a room service worker, always deliver him food. Not exactly sure what went on in there, but he tipped her with a big bag of weed each time, which she would promptly bring back to share with the room service staff. Calvin Klein brought his own food because he was on a special diet. He was an asshole about it too. I can confirm that the concierge will get you whatever you want. Women, drugs, Cuban cigars, guest listed at clubs. On the opposite end of the spectrum, I worked at a nice but older resort, one step above a cheap motel. A local hooker stole all the furniture from one of our rooms. It was old, crappy wicker furniture. We had a local couple who were staying with us to avoid being served for a lawsuit. We weren't allowed to say that they were staying there. The police eventually showed up for them. There were several times when guests would come to the front desk, claiming the maids had stolen something from their room. They would be irate, demanding we call the police. Every single time. They found the item either in their luggage or car, or their travel companions had packed the item. One gentleman claimed that he forgot his very expensive camera in his room. My manager pulled up video that showed him packing up his car, placing the camera on top of the car, and driving off without realizing it. Some luxury hotels that cater to sports teams have standing agreements that no room service is allowed after the team departs. Otherwise, the girls the athletes brought back the night before will rack up huge bills the team has to pay, edited for clarity. I don't understand. You mean they take girls to the hotel who abuse the room service after the athletes have checked out? That's how I read it. We have a secret way in from the parking garage that leads to the executive offices. It's for prostitutes. These comments remind me that when I was on vacation last year, a guy, drunk, tried to do a backflip on the balcony and fell off. I want to say it was like the 10th floor, maybe. It was pretty big talk around the city. Edit. He did not survive. I used to work in accounts receivable for a couple of luxury hotels that were owned by the same LC. We would open blocks of rooms for generic sports season about 8 months in advance. Due to high demand, these reservations had to be a 2-day fry, sat stay. Payment was made in full, $450–800, depending on room type. Refunds were available only if you cancelled a month before the arrival date. When I first started in the position, I discovered $63,000 worth of reservations that had been cancelled on time, but were never refunded. I showed it to my manager, an absolutely incompetent woman who couldn't check in a guest if she needed to. She got back to me after discussing it with one of the owners. I can't remember how exactly she put it, but I was told to just forget the matter and not to mention it to anyone. I got a $500 cash Christmas bonus that year. Dang, $500 out of $63,000. That's not enough for my silence. Right about $6,300 or $10 sounds good. Or if I knew how to do it, about $63 glow. Accountant here, that's shady. Recording a liability as income. Yikes. Not a hotel employee, but associated with a popular convention that everyone would recognize. The convention attendees get so out of control that the hotel will only host the convention if they have a private security force. Since the private security isn't law enforcement or licensed, they do pretty much whatever it takes to keep trouble out of the public eye. Mostly it's locking people up in rooms or escorting them out of town, but they can get rough at times. But none of the convention attendees know they are there, and the hotel staff pretends they don't see them. Even those who run afoul of them don't know exactly who it was that grabbed them. There is this hotel near the SeaTac airport. People will rent rooms on the backside, top floors, and then suicide off the balcony. Yeah, they are not going to run that in the news. Not often, but when it happens, no one knows. Suicide is rarely ever reported on the news. Intentionally. If reported, it leads to an increase in suicides in the following days, so media organizations don't cover it. I worked in media in San Francisco, and the city begged us to stop covering Golden Gate Bridge suicides when the count hit the 990s for fear people would rush to be noted. 1,000 haven't been covered since, except for some locally famous guys. Why would the news report random people killing themselves? Good morning, Seattle. 23 people committed suicide last night. Here's a list. That'd be fucking weird. You're not gonna believe how 19 did it. I used to work as a freelance bartender, and hotels were always the worst run situation I would end up in. Here are some examples from a really nice-looking hotel in an old monastery. The beer lines had never been cleaned, like literally never. I asked where the equipment was to do it, and no one could tell me. I eventually found it dusty in a closet in the cellar. The breakfast buffet leftovers were usually reheated and given to the staff, but sometimes became the following day's breakfast buffet. The chefs were just shit-faced pretty much every day. The worst I saw, though, was the wine put out on tables at a wedding. They married them up, recapped them, and put them back in the cellar. Not even the same wine getting poured into bottles. Guests had drank straight from them, and everyone had seen, and no one had an issue with this. In my country, this is actually illegal. It's called diverting waste. This was the final straw for me in this particular venue. I told the manager that I didn't give a shit what he did after my time there ended, but there was no fucking way I was letting that wine be resold. He tried to tell me that it was perfectly legal. I cut him off and told him that it wasn't. It doesn't matter either way. It's disgusting and immoral, and if I find a single bottle of that wine in the stores, I'm walking out. Luckily, when you're freelance bartending somewhere, you're there because they desperately need you, so threatening to leave works really well. Lots of theft, quite a few deaths, and plenty of prostitution. We once had a lady overdose in the hot tub. That was a big cleanup. We had valet service at our hotel, and due to huge amounts of theft and break-ins by bums in our lots, we had to go through guests' cars and take everything of value out to hid stuff in our conference room, then put it all back in before we brought their car around. It was ridiculous, and we had to keep it under wraps.